How anxious are your employees about their financial well-being? Here's why you should know, why you should care, and what you can do about it.
Welcome to The Market That Moves America, a podcast from the National Center for the Middle Market, which will educate you about the challenges facing mid-sized companies and help you take advantage of new opportunities.
Middle market companies pride themselves on having close, productive relationships with employees. An often forgotten part of that is how anxious are they about their own financial well-being. Turns out that can have a big impact on how the company does as well. I'm Tom Stewart, the Executive Director of the National Center for the Middle Market at The Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. We're the nation's leading research outfit studying mid-sized companies, which account for a third of private sector employment and GDP and the lion's share of economic growth. It is the market that moves America. The National Center for the Middle Market is a partnership between Ohio State and SunTrust Banks, Grant Thornton LLP, and Cisco Systems. With me today is a special guest, Brian Nelson Ford, who is the Financial Wellbeing Executive of SunTrust, one of NCMM's sponsors. Brian, welcome to The Market That Moves America.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Let me begin with a couple of points to just set the stage, and Brian, you're going to run with a lot more of this, but we've been looking at some research that was conducted by NPR's Marketplace and Edison Research that points out that like 44% of employees feel stuck in terms of career advancement, and that's 10 points higher for women. 26% feel financially insecure, and that's not just the unemployed. 20% of employed people feel financially insecure. 21% of them are frequently anxious, and 60% are anxious at least sometimes. Brian, what do you make of those numbers?
Those numbers don't surprise me. I've been in the workplace financial wellness space for a long time now, and that's what we're seeing out in the marketplace. That's what we're seeing with individuals and with companies. I find it amazing that, half of Americans, they're living paycheck to paycheck. And by the way, that's regardless of income. Sometimes we are quick to say, well, that's the lower end of the workforce, right? And it's not. And a third of us have no savings whatsoever. So those stats don't surprise me.
No saving. A third of us have no savings whatsoever.
That's right.
And probably that third has access to credit, but has a pretty substantial credit card balance as well.
Yes, absolutely. There's no problem. Debt's a problem in the country as well.
So all right. So why is this? I mean, I hire you, I pay you. Why? How does this show up as a workforce issue?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, people are feeling stress and they're not leaving that at home. They're bringing that into the workplace. Research is pretty clear. It's one of the number one causes of workplace stress, at least financial issues are. We know that employees, they're spending about 28 hours per month worrying about, stressed over, calculating their finances. And it's costing companies about $5,000 a year in lost productivity. That's $5,000 per employee in lost productivity. And, I was talking to a CEO of a company, this is just a couple of weeks ago, and he knew that these were issues within the workplace. He knew this wasn't just a personal thing that was going on. In fact, he kind of, he joked with me and he said, Brian, I'm pretty sure our employees, they're not just, those 28 hours that they're stressing out, I'm pretty sure that's not just on Saturday morning. And I agreed with him. And I mean, it's a simple way of saying, look, this is spilling over into the workplace, and it's causing issues within the workplace. It's not just a family or a personal thing.
But I've got to assume also that when I think about that, it may not be my own personal anxiety, but it could also be anxiety about my spouse, about my children, about my mother. I mean, there's sort of an extended family issue as well, and that all of that can be pulling me away from the grindstone, or away from really focusing my best attention on what I want to do at work.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Relationships are impacted by financial illiteracy. Again, research is very clear that fights over money. It's one of the number one causes of divorce in this country. When we're struggling with any type of a relationship, whether you're married or not, whether this is an issue with an adult child, you're bringing that stuff to work. It's impacting productivity.
So you guys I mean, I want to talk a little bit about middle market companies, or a lot about middle market companies, but I know you guys started out at SunTrust, a bank with presumably financially literate employees, and sort of looked at some of the situation with your own employee base and discovered, I mean, what did you guys learn about how this shows up even with well-paid people working for a bank?
Yeah, well, we actually assumed what you did, which is we are a bank and our employees should be doing better. And that's what we thought about 3 years ago. But really, through an employee engagement survey, we found that we were wrong. And in many areas, our employees weren't doing any better than the national averages. And those national averages, by the way, they're not acceptable.
Yeah, they're grim. Yeah.
We just talked about a bunch of those statistics. And so, this just was not a good thing, but it certainly was a wake-up call. And so we decided to implement a workplace financial wellness program. We actually call it Momentum on Up. And we launched it a couple years ago. We've got over 16,000 of our 24,000 teammates actively participating in the program. And we've seen some really nice results. In fact, they astounded us. We knew it would be good. We knew it would help. We know education is important. But, I mean, really, we found some pretty neat things. I mean, let me kind of share a few of those with you. There's kind of how the teammate is benefiting, and then there's how SunTrust is benefiting. But what's cool is 73% of our teammates are better prepared to handle a $2,000 unexpected expense. Because the national statistic is 40% of people could not come up with $2,000.
Which means a fender bender and you're in deep trouble, right?
That's exactly right. Yep. 86% of our teammates are now making progress toward their financial goals. 62% feel less financial stress. And so that's a nice thing. We love that our teammates are benefiting, but also at SunTrust, we're benefiting as well. And a few other things is, 76% of our teammates are now more likely to refer others to work at SunTrust. 69%, so almost 70% feel more confident about building a longer career at SunTrust. And one of my favorite stats, I'll share this with you, is in corporate America, if you ask employees, does your employer care about you? I mean, personally, around your personal finances, does your employer care about your personal financial journey? Only about 40% of folks will say yes to that. And again, we weren't much better than the average. Now, 2 years later, 82% of our employees believe that SunTrust cares about them and their personal financial well-being, which is exciting for us.
So a couple of things. One thing, I mean, you've got this program. What are the, pillars of it? I mean, we don't need to go into a lot of detail, but like, what are the big elements?
Yeah, well, I will say that we followed kind of this 3-tiered structure. Education is always important, but sometimes that's where we jump right into when we said, why are these types of programs failing? So we stepped back and we said, there's got to be something more than just education. So our 3-tiered structure really is inspire, educate, and then equip. We got to start with inspiring employees, capturing their hearts.
I got to have hope, right? I got to think it's going to work.
Well, sometimes we jump right in and start talking about budgeting and half the room falls asleep and we wonder why our financial wellness programs don't work.
I'm about to snore right here. Yeah, exactly.
Uh-oh. That's how my wife is, by the way.
She's right. She's right. All sensible people think budgeting is boring.
I'm telling you, when she can't sleep at night, I just start reading from my book. And we start talking about our net worth. And 5 minutes later, she's snoring. And anyway, so we've got to inspire people. Then we can educate them. But we got to go beyond that. And we need to equip them so that they've got the tools to make this sustainable. But I think your question specifically was around the education. So just very quickly, I want to mention that the education that we provide our teammates, it's research-based, even though I was one of the lead authors. And we follow something called the 8 pillars. And all we did, we studied folks who are happy with their money, regardless of their income. And we said, how did you get here? What are you doing different? And we backed out these 8 pillars. A few highlights. Pillar 1 is about establishing a confidence account. I mean, that's a fun, fancy way of saying you need to have some emergency savings. And then in Pillar 2, we organize and we automate the finances. Pillar 3, we help people get out of consumer debt and understand their credit score. Pillar 4 is insurance and estate planning. And then we go into investing and home ownership. Pillar 7 is about career development. It's about really managing your income source, not just the money that you make, but can you make more money? And then we round things out with Pillar 8. Pillar 8 is about giving back. It's about getting perspective and giving back and helping our communities be a better place. So in essence, that's kind of our program in a nutshell.
So I want to think a little bit about this with smaller companies. I mean, SunTrust is not the world's biggest company, but you do have 24,000 employees. And one of the things I think about when I think about mid-sized companies are two things. One is workforce and the productivity of the workforce is absolutely critical. One of the things that we learned is that 77% of middle market executives are at least somewhat concerned about whether their employees are financially concerned. 40% are very or extremely concerned. And in retail, more than half of them are. And at the same time, one of the things we know is that mid-sized companies are the most aggressive hirers, and they feel the talent shortage and the talent pinch more acutely than anyone else. So 4 out of 10 middle market executives say that a lack of talent is constraining their ability to grow. So what I'm hearing from you is that programs like Momentum On Up can help me retain employees because they're more likely to, your SunTrust data, and I think you have data for other companies too, that show that these people are more likely to stay. So it's easier to keep a bucket full if it's not leaking, right? And I'm also more likely to be able to get more productivity from them because they're not pulling their hair or losing sleep or whatever it is. So I can make some pretty significant improvements in some of those workforce challenges.
Absolutely.
How do I do it light? I mean, you guys are big. You got a big HR team. What if I've got 5? What if how can I do this with a smaller outfit?
Well, I can tell you, Tom, I've been doing this for over a decade. I've rolled out over 200 workplace financial wellness programs. In fact, I was the founder and CEO of the company that SunTrust purchased in order to create their own internal program. And so I've been doing this not just for large companies, but for small and mid-sized companies as well. And I can tell you, people are people. You get a person, and if you can solve a problem or an issue or decrease a stress, that's going to help productivity in the workplace. But I will say at SunTrust, we did measure turnover. We looked at new hires in a 1-year period, and we found that those who did not participate in the program, we retained about 60% of them. But those who did participate, we retained 92% of them. There was a 32% difference in retention. Now, we're not going to say, complete causation there, but there's definitely a correlation. Something's going on there. We're making a difference. And I would say the same is true for middle and small organizations.
How do I do it light? If I've got an HR team of 5, how can I do this?
Well, most companies are outsourcing it. It is something you can do internal. I mean, if you're thinking of more of like a light version, I would say start with your current benefits and making sure that if there are some of those benefits that have to do with financial literacy or wellness, that you're highlighting those, that people know about them. And so maybe it is if you do have a retirement plan, maybe it's having your plan sponsors come in and provide something, kind of like a light version. But I would say that's more of I want to check the box. What we're finding is if you really want to create long-term behavior change, which that results in greater productivity and lowering turnover, that's a more extensive strategic thought process. You can do it with a small team. You just need to outsource it with folks that know exactly what they're doing.
It's interesting. Another one of these pieces of data that we just collected, we asked companies about their overall employee value proposition. So that's pay and benefits and everything else that goes with it. And we asked them, do you do the minimum? Just I pay them as little as possible. Do you pay to meet an industry standard? We want to be right there with our peers. Or do you pay and reward. You create a value proposition to create competitive advantage, to be the kind of place that attracts the best talent. And so we gave that choice. I guess we gave other as a choice. But basically, the pie divided itself almost equally in thirds. About a third of people say we'll reward employees as little as we can get away with. About a third said we want to be competitive in our industry, and about a third said we want to knock the ball out of the park. And what's interesting is that last third was also the best performing third.
That does not surprise me. Not surprising at all. Really, when you look at some of the employers of choice, you look at some of the best places to work, they're often some of the most profitable as well. Again, I was meeting with another executive of a very profitable organization. They have been recognized as an employer of choice. And, we were grabbing a bite to eat together, and he said, Brian, I don't think I could imagine calling ourselves the best places to work while ignoring one of the number one issues on the minds of our employees, and that's financial stress. And they believe this is a company, again, that's won awards in customer service and customer satisfaction. They believe that if they treat their employees well, that their employees will treat their customers well. And that's led to good business outcomes. It just simply makes sense.
So one of the interesting things is that, from what I'm hearing from you, is that the solution to this is not just to throw more money at it. I mean, it's not just like give everybody a raise and they'll be happy. In fact, you give them a raise and the anxiety, they just may have the anxiety at a 20% higher level or whatever it is. But it really is this combination of inspiration, education, and tools. And that's where the solution is. The solution is not just cut a bigger paycheck.
There's no doubt about that. The research is clearly stating that you can't just give people raises. Yes, satisfaction with pay will spike for a little while, but then give it a few months and people again will be paycheck to paycheck asking for more money. And so you're spot on. It really is. It's a combination of financial education and then shining more light on your existing benefits as far as the tools that will help them. I mean, look, one thing I will say is after doing this for a while, I'm very confident that, financial issues, this is not a new problem in our country, and financial education is not a new solution, but workplace financial wellness is different. It's making a difference. It made a difference at SunTrust, and we were kind of blown away. And then we said, wow, we've got to offer this to other companies. And that's exactly what we're doing now. We've gone beyond our own teammates. We now have over 50 companies that are using Momentum on Up as a way to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And, once you really do this, it makes sense that workplace financial wellness is working because it's coming through a highly vetted source, the company. It's at the source of where they get paid. It's the source of their benefits. And so now they can better understand, appreciate, and utilize those benefits. And it just all makes a whole lot more sense. So it's kind of an exciting frontier that we're seeing with workplace.
It's pretty cool. And when you think about it, you wouldn't, your human capital isn't, for most companies, it's not on the balance sheet, but it's the most important asset. And a little bit of care and feeding of it and helping to get it smarter and smarter so that you don't just plug it in, right? It's not just, human capital is like any other kind of machinery or anything. You don't just plug and play. You actually have to work carefully to develop it, improve it, and get it and get the most out of it. And plus, as you said, people are people.
Well said.
Yep. So, Brian, thank you very much. Brian Nelson Ford from SunTrust, the Financial Wellness Executive, and you can learn more about that program at their website, which is momentumonup.com. And you can learn more about the National Center for the Middle Market from our website, which is middlemarketcenter.com. middlemarketcenter.org, excuse me. Thank you so much for listening to The Market That Moves America. Never miss a new episode. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever fine podcasts can be found, or you can subscribe and learn more about us at our website, again, middlemarketcenter.org. Thanks very much.